H1B visas. So I'm going to tell you all about H1B visas and why the program is going through reforms right now. First of all, the H1B visa program is a great program, but it relies on the honor system. That means that people have to follow the rules on their own. And what's going on is people are not following the rules. When I say people, I mean businesses are not following the rules of the H1B visa program. Uh, so the important part of the H-1B visa is that you're allowed to hire a foreign worker. However, you have to run an advertisement to try and hire an American. And if you're unable to find an American, then you can do the H-1 visa to hire a foreign worker. It's only if employees are not available. If workers in the US are not available, then you can hire a foreign worker. There is a minimum wage. When I was in college, it was $24,000. My friend's first job, he was paid $24,000 because he was from a European country. My first job, I made $38,000 outside of college. So that's what you get with the H-1B visa, whatever the minimum is. I did see somewhere reference to 40,000. Now the other issue is that um, certain jobs should not have H-1B visas. For example, a waitress, there should not be an H-1B visa to hire a waitress because anybody can do that. Anything that's like an unskilled job, you should not have these visas. However, when I look through, there's a website where they publicly list thing that they have the visa for. There were unskilled labor jobs that had H-1B visas, such as waitress. This is an abuse of the system. So, like I said, it's an honor system. If you don't prove that you have a shortage, how do you prove you have a shortage? I don't think that there's no penalty. There's no civil penalty. People are going to violate it. When I was younger, people were definitely more honest. As an example, when I was in high school, the other high school students in my class, they had no honesty whatsoever. They talked about cheating. They talked about how they didn't only cared about money. And I thought, oh my God, when these people are older, they're going to run the world. The world's going to be a disaster. The world is worse than I thought it was when I was younger. So they're no longer following the rules, which means you have to put penalties in, you have to enforce the rules, or worst case scenario, you have to change the system, which means that people aren't going to be able to use it anymore. So I think first of all, I'm a first generation American. My parents were immigrants, my aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, all great grandparents, all immigrants. Well, some of my cousins are not. The ones born before me were. I support immigration and I support the H-1B visa program, but it is being abused. If Americans are unable to get a job, they're not going to be able to buy the products and services that the other companies are selling. This is a self-defeating system. If the H-1B visa program is abused, then it's going to cause the economy to go down. It's going to cause more unemployment. People are going to spend less money, and we all know that that's what's been happening over the past 5 or 10 years. The economy's been slowing down. I applied for hundreds of jobs. I didn't even get a response. I got a response from one company, and they said we're not going to hire you. And I actually lived in their town. All the rest of them were for remote work. I actually lived in that town. Um, a lot of people are saying online that they're applying for hundreds of jobs and getting no response. You can't tell me that you need an H-1B visa for a computer programmer. I have the skills. I can program in any language. People who are foreigners in a country like India or China, they don't have the background that I have. I started programming in 1982. It was actually in the 1970s with the school computer, but I had my home computer in 1982. I used to buy Compute magazine and Compute Gazette, and every month I would type in two or three programs. They were usually video games. I didn't know what a spreadsheet was, but I typed in the program and I had a spreadsheet in the 80s. And I wrote my own software. I wrote a paint program when I was in high school, and I wrote a video game. It was like Tetris, but I called it Letris, and it dropped letters, and you had to spell words to clear the line. That was before I went to college. So you have to have the home computer in order to have the programming experience and the programming knowledge. And people in other countries like India and China, they do not own home computers unless they're wealthy. Obviously, even at school, you got shared computers. It's not widely available. So you're not going to get the best talent. I am 54 years old. I'm way better than I was when I was 25. If you told me hire the 25-year-old me versus the 54-year-old me, absolutely the 54-year-old me. What took me maybe a month to do when I was a kid now takes me a few hours to do. Way better talent. And I don't need to make a lot of money because I don't live in New York City. I don't need to make the most I made in New York City was $72,000, and I had extra money and I went traveling around. Life was pretty good. You don't need to make 150,000. You can live off of 50 or 60,000 if you live in a small town, even less than that. So there's no excuse for them to not hire American workers. They're abusing the program, and I don't think the quality of work is. I live in a foreign country. I've been living overseas for like 20 years, and obviously I do go back to the United States frequently. But the quality here is so low. if if they're manufacturing something, they do so with low quality standards. For example, you see it in the construction. If they build a wall, they won't properly put the concrete in, so you see big gaps. You see the rebar inside the wall. You see parts of the wall falling off. When they repaved the road over here a couple of weeks ago, they had to come back and do it again like 2 weeks later because the road washed away from the rain. So the quality control here is very, very, very low. I wish I could show you the walls. The walls for the room that I'm in are so poor. An American would not live here. You'd be shouting at your landlord, "Why haven't you cleaned this?" Over here, they'll just laugh at you. Quality standards overseas in countries like India and even in China is very low, and it's in people's mentality. They're not going to put here. So there's something called ADA style programming. That's where you I don't think you can run the program unless you account for every condition, every variable. That's the way I write my code. Every parameter that I pass, I make sure it's within a valid range. Foreigners, I guarantee you they're not doing it. I didn't do it when I was 25 years old. Glad I heard about the ADA style programming. So although the H1B visa program is good and necessary, you turn it off, have nobody allowed, country's going to do. The United States doesn't need H-1B visa program. I understand Elon Musk came through on an H-1B visa program, and you get certain advantages being at an American university, but we're bringing in way too many people, and the program is definitely being abused. In fact, bring in Canadians, and wouldn't that be better having Canadians come in and live in the United States through an H-1B visa? I'd prefer a program like that. I'm Italian. I'd prefer to have a Canadian uh, in the H-1B visa than an Italian person because it's similar to the culture. We're going to assimilate easily. We're going to have a great time doing the work that they're doing. The efficiency overall is going to be better. Okay, so that's my opinion on the H-1B visa